bring in Adam Klotz, who's been tracking this storm. And Adam, this speaks to exactly what we've been talking about so often, that the worst part of these storms we don't see as it's happening, evidenced by those white boxes behind you, that the wind meters that are supposed to give you and other meteorologists information don't work anymore. We're completely blind, essentially.
Yeah, that's really chilling. But with these particular boxes, what we should be seeing, right, are our wind gusts. I've been here since 7 o'clock here yesterday, 7 p.m., and we were watching this storm move closer. Farther away, you can see some of them. Wind gusts briefly were up to 70 miles an hour, maybe up to 80 miles an hour. But as this storm moved across this area, we got up to 80 miles, 90 miles an hour, and we saw those numbers, and then they started dropping off one by one because these winds getting up to 130 miles an hour, gusting up to 160 miles an hour. These are sites, some of them buoys, some of them on land from the National Weather Service, and these winds strong enough to absolutely take them out. The data is then sent, and we're able to gather that data, but now none of these sending data. So really anywhere where the heart of this is going, Leland, Jackie, these are areas where, yeah, it's taking down communications for us, and obviously with the story you're saying, it's taking down communications for a lot of folks just trying to survive and take care of each other in those areas as well.
Adam, you talked about, and maybe you studied this in meteorology school, but how highly fortified are these weather installations? They've got to know hurricanes come to these areas. They've got to know that getting wind gust readings are important. What are they fortified to? Is it 100 miles an hour? Is it 130 miles an hour? At what point do you sort of know that they've broken?
Well, in this case, we know when they've broken as they started dropping off, and it was pretty consistently around 90 miles an hour.
Wow.
You do your best to put them in a location that's protected, but again, with a storm like this, there's only so much that can be done because these have to be in the elements. You can't protect it too much. You want to be able to get into the wind. You want to be able to get the rain, so you can't hide these things.
Well, and as we've been talking all night, Jackie, it's not only the issue of getting the readings, but then getting those communications out, as we learned from the police department in Aransas Pass. Haven't heard anything from Rockport, but from Aransas Pass, they don't have phones, they don't have cell phones, they don't have, in many cases, they don't have power. It is very difficult, especially in the middle of the night, for folks who have decided to ride this storm out, and then for the folks who are police officers and firefighters who are charged with protecting the rest of the people who decided to stick around.
Well, you know what, Leland? We've been trying to get a hold of the police chief there in Aransas all night long, and now this makes sense after seeing their Facebook post saying there'll be no further communications till they're able to get everything back up and running. Well, that makes all good sense now. We're wondering why we couldn't get a hold of him. We also couldn't get a hold of the mayor in Rockport. You remember that's the mayor who said if you're going to ride this thing out, you might as well get a Sharpie and write your Social Security number on your arm. Something very chilling. Well, he was going to do a phoner with us. We can't get a hold of him, so we can't get a hold of a lot of people that we're trying to get this information out of some of these local towns and cities, and that's why you're not seeing the most devastating photos yet, because we can't get them.
No, we can't get them, and we don't know if the folks who are there are safe. Adam, I got a little bit of a chill down my back as Jackie was talking, because this is reminiscent in a little bit of a way of the first hours of Katrina, that everyone thought it wasn't as bad as everyone predicted, and everyone sort of took a deep breath and went, well, it's okay, and then daybreak came and we saw how bad it is. Obviously, Rockport, Texas is not New Orleans, Louisiana, but it is a flat town, as are a lot of those other areas. They're low lying. Is there a chance we're in for some pretty heavy devastation come daybreak?
Yeah, I do think there's a chance we're in some pretty heavy devastation. I think part of the thing that makes this so damaging, when we're just talking about wind, I still think the rain 4 or 5 days from now is going to be the bigger story for all of Texas. But as far as Rockport and running right along the coast, we can just see the amount of time it spends moving across just there in the corner. For nearly 2 hours, that town of Rockport sat right on the eye wall, and that's where the strongest winds are. So consistently 130, gusting maybe up to 160 mile an hour winds. Structures can only take that for so long, and when we're talking about multiple hours, yeah, things were starting to come apart, I'm sure of it.
Well, yeah, we heard that the one place they thought was safe, at least in, I believe it was Rockport, was the jail, which is where they took people from the senior citizen center, because it was one of the only places that was fortified enough to survive the winds. Adam, your experience, how long does it take for these communications to start getting restored?
That's what makes this maybe a unique situation. It's more often than not, these storms can get out of there, crews can get back in, but we are not going to see a lot of motion with this. Right now, currently, we're only moving at 6 miles an hour. Still, the winds are at 110 miles an hour. That means that by the time the sun comes up, we're only going to be another several miles up the road. So at this rate, it's gonna take a little while, because obviously folks aren't going to go out in this and start putting things back together.
Right, Adam, we thank you as the power continues to go out around Texas. And Jackie, it brings up an important point that we got from the former assistant to the head of FEMA, that they have all of these resources staged north and west of where this storm is. Power trucks to come in, fuel trucks to come in, bulldozers to move things. But if there's thunderstorms and torrential rains coming down, you've got flooded roads that you can't get over. You've got generators that are washed out and cell towers. So the rain could seriously hamper any ability to get rescue teams and recovery teams in there.
Yeah, well, it's not looking so good there. Let's hope as the sun comes up, we can see what kind of damage. But I was reading there's about 5.8 million people that live from Corpus Christi to Galveston. So a lot of people in the wake of the storm there.